Nestled in the heart of East Africa, Rwanda is a country of breathtaking landscapes. It is known as the land of 1,000 hills. Rolling hills, lush rainforests, and shimmering lakes paint a picture of serenity. This serene beauty belies a history marred by violence and conflict. The Rwandan genocide of 1994 stands as a stark reminder of humanity's capacity for darkness. The world watched in horror as nearly 1 million people were brutally murdered over a span of just 100 days. Rwanda's journey from genocide to its present state is complex and multifaceted. It is a story of immense loss, but also of remarkable recovery. Join us as we navigate the tumultuous history of Rwanda. To understand Rwanda as it stands in the present day, we must first journey into its past. The origins of Rwanda we know today has strong roots in the Rwandan conflicts of the past, like the tragic Rwandan genocide. The origins of the Rwandan genocide lie in the complex interplay of ethnicity, power, and colonialism. For centuries, Rwanda was home to 3 main groups: the Hutu, Tutsi, and TWA. The Hutu, traditionally agriculturalists, constituted the majority of the population. The Tutsi, often pastoralists, were a minority group often associated with wealth and power. The TWA, hunter-gatherers, comprised a much smaller percentage of the population. While these groups coexisted for centuries, their relationships were not always harmonious. The arrival of European colonizers in the late 19th century, particularly the Belgians, would tragically exacerbate existing social fissures. The Belgians imposed a rigid system of ethnic classification. This system favored the Tutsi minority, further entrenching divisions and sowing the seeds of resentment. The echoes of this colonial legacy would reverberate for decades to come. They would culminate in the unspeakable horrors of the 1994 genocide. Long before the arrival of European colonizers, the verdant hills of Rwanda were inhabited by 3 distinct yet interconnected groups: the Hutu, the Tutsi, and the TWA. The Hutu, known for their agricultural prowess, formed the backbone of Rwandan society. The Tutsi, primarily pastoralists, held vast herds of cattle, a symbol of wealth and prestige in Rwandan culture. The TWA, the smallest of the 3 groups, lived as hunter-gatherers, their lives deeply intertwined with the forests and mountains. These 3 groups coexisted for centuries, their lives interwoven through trade, intermarriage, and shared customs. European perceptions of Africa, steeped in racist ideologies, were often influenced by the biblical curse of Ham. Belgian colonizers, eager to exploit the region's resources, seized upon existing social distinctions between Hutu and Tutsi, twisting them into a fabricated racial hierarchy. The Tutsi, with their taller stature and lighter skin tones, were deemed closer to Europeans in this warped perspective. They were falsely labeled as natural rulers descended from the mythical lost tribe of Israel. The Hutu, on the other hand, were relegated to an inferior status, portrayed as inherently subservient. The Belgian colonial administration, determined to solidify its control over Rwanda, implemented policies designed to exacerbate the manufactured divide between Hutu and Tutsi. Identity cards were introduced, rigidly classifying individuals as either Hutu or Tutsi, erasing the fluidity that had previously characterized social relations. The Tutsi, favored by the Belgians, were granted privileged access to education, employment, and positions of power. This preferential treatment bred resentment among the Hutu majority, who found themselves increasingly marginalized. The seeds of discord, sown by Belgian colonialism, took root in this fertile ground of inequality and resentment. The Belgian colonizers, steeped in the racist ideologies of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, arrived in Rwanda with preconceived notions about race and hierarchy. They sought justification for their exploitation of the Rwandan people and found it in a distorted interpretation of history and anthropology known as the Hamitic hypothesis. This theory posited that certain African groups, particularly those with lighter skin or more European features, were superior to others. In Rwanda, the Belgians applied this flawed logic to the existing social distinctions between the Hutu and Tutsi. They saw the Tutsi, with their generally taller stature and lighter skin tones, as evidence of Hamitic ancestry, labeling them a superior race. Armed with the Hamitic hypothesis, the Belgians embarked on a calculated strategy of divide and rule. They sought to maintain control over Rwanda not through brute force alone, but by sowing discord among the population. This strategy involved elevating the Tutsi minority to positions of power within the colonial administration, effectively pitting them against the Hutu majority. The Tutsi, granted preferential access to education, employment, and political influence, became the face of Belgian authority in the eyes of many Hutu. Resentment and distrust festered on both sides, creating a volatile atmosphere ripe for exploitation. As the winds of change swept across Africa in the mid-20th century, the grip of European colonialism began to weaken. Rwanda, too, experienced this surge of nationalism, but the road to independence would prove treacherous, paved with the bitter consequences of Belgian manipulation. The Hutu, long marginalized and oppressed under Belgian rule, began to challenge the Tutsi dominance that had been artificially imposed upon them. The Hutu emancipation movement, formed in 1957, called for a transfer of power from the Tutsi to the Hutu majority. This movement, fueled by decades of resentment and the rhetoric of self-determination, marked a turning point in Rwandan history. The year 1959 saw the eruption of what became known as the Hutu Revolution. Fueled by years of simmering resentment and sparked by the death of a prominent Hutu sub-chief, violence against the Tutsi erupted across Rwanda. Thousands of Tutsi were killed or forced to flee their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries. The Belgian colonial administration, once the architect of Tutsi dominance, now found itself caught in the crossfire. Fearful of losing control, Belgium shifted its support to the Hutu majority, hoping to salvage its influence in a rapidly changing political landscape. The year 1962 marked a pivotal moment in Rwanda's history: independence from Belgian colonial rule. However, the long-awaited liberation did not usher in an era of peace and unity. The Hutu, emboldened by their newfound power, embarked on a campaign of retribution against the Tutsi. The violence that had erupted during the 1959 revolution continued, forcing thousands more Tutsi to flee their homes. The newly independent Rwandan government, dominated by Hutu leaders, implemented discriminatory policies that further marginalized the Tutsi minority. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Rwanda witnessed the steady growth of a dangerous ideology: Hutu power. This extremist ideology sought to solidify Hutu dominance by any means necessary. Hutu power proponents viewed the Tutsi minority not merely as political rivals, but as an existential threat to the Hutu nation. The Rwandan government, under the leadership of President Juvenal Habyarimana, turned a blind eye to the increasingly virulent anti-Tutsi rhetoric. In some cases, government officials actively encouraged and supported these extremist groups. The rise of Hutu power was aided and abetted by the proliferation of hate speech in the Rwandan media. Radio stations, particularly the notorious radio television Libre des Mille Collines or RTLM, became powerful mouthpieces for extremist propaganda. RTLM, established in 1993, bombarded the Rwandan airwaves with a constant stream of anti-Tutsi rhetoric. Tutsi citizens were demonized as cockroaches and snakes, accused of harboring treacherous plans to overthrow the government. The radio station's incendiary broadcasts had a profound impact on Rwandan society, normalizing and legitimizing anti-Tutsi sentiment. As Hutu power tightened its grip on Rwanda, a group of exiled Tutsi refugees in neighboring Uganda was organizing for resistance. The Rwandan Patriotic Front, or RPF, formed in 1985, aimed to overthrow the Hutu-dominated government and secure the right of return for Tutsi refugees. Led by Paul Kagame, the RPF posed a significant challenge to the Rwandan government. In October 1990, the RPF launched an armed incursion into Rwanda, sparking a civil war that would last for over 3 years. The RPF's invasion had profound consequences for Rwanda's political landscape, justifying further discrimination and violence against the Tutsi population. In the aftermath of the 1994 genocide, Rwanda lay shattered, both physically and psychologically. The scale of the violence was staggering, leaving an estimated 800,000 people dead and countless others displaced. The country's infrastructure was decimated, its economy in ruins, and its social fabric torn apart. Yet amidst the despair and devastation, a glimmer of hope emerged. The Rwandan people, though scarred by the horrors they had witnessed and endured, possessed an indomitable spirit. One of the most significant challenges facing post-genocide Rwanda was the issue of justice. With over 100,000 individuals suspected of participating in the genocide, the traditional justice system was ill-equipped to handle the sheer volume of cases. In response, Rwanda adopted a unique approach to transitional justice, the Gacaca courts. Based on traditional Rwandan methods of community-based conflict resolution, the Gacaca courts aim to achieve both justice and reconciliation. These community-based courts provided a platform for victims to share their stories, confront perpetrators, and seek a measure of closure. Economic progress and social transformation. Rwanda's remarkable turnaround. Rwanda has transformed since the genocide, achieving economic development, poverty reduction, and social progress. Under President Kagame, Rwanda attracted foreign investment and promoted tourism, agriculture, and technology. The government prioritized education, healthcare, and gender equality, investing in human capital. Rwanda's commitment to environmental protection has earned it recognition in conservation. This progress contrasts with the devastation of the genocide, showcasing resilience and hope. Rwanda's journey is a testament to the transformative power of hope and determination. The shadow of genocide, lingering tensions in the Great Lakes region. The 1994 Rwandan genocide did not end with the Rwandan Patriotic Front's victory. Its shockwaves reverberated throughout the Great Lakes region, casting a long shadow over neighboring countries, particularly the Democratic Republic of Congo. Millions of Rwandan refugees fled into eastern Congo, seeking safety from the violence. Among them were perpetrators of the genocide and ordinary citizens caught in the crossfire. The massive influx destabilized eastern Congo, already grappling with internal conflicts. The presence of genocidaires posed a significant security threat to the region. These armed groups launched cross-border raids into Rwanda, seeking to destabilize the new government. The Kivu conflict, a proxy war fueled by resources and revenge. Rwandan Hutu militias in eastern Congo sparked the Kivu conflict, drawing in multiple armed groups and foreign mercenaries. Rwanda intervened, citing national security, but faced accusations of exploiting Congo's mineral wealth. The conflict devastated civilians, causing displacement, sexual violence, and mass atrocities. The volatile security situation in eastern Congo has worsened with the emergence of the M23 rebel group. Accused of receiving support from Rwanda, M23's resurgence has reignited regional tensions. Their tactics, including child soldier recruitment and human rights abuses, are widely condemned. In November 2012, M23 rebels captured the strategic city of Goma, the capital of North Kivu province and a major commercial hub in eastern Congo. The fall of Goma, which occurred after days of heavy fighting with Congolese government forces, sent shockwaves through the region and raised alarm bells in the international community. The capture of such a strategically important city highlighted the weakness of the Congolese army and the fragility of the peace process. It also underscored the complex web of regional rivalries and the challenges of achieving lasting stability in a region scarred by decades of conflict. The international community responded to the fall of Goma with a mix of condemnation and calls for a negotiated settlement. The United Nations Security Council imposed sanctions on M23 leaders, while regional organizations like the African Union and the Southern African Development Community intensified diplomatic efforts to broker a ceasefire and revive the stalled peace process. The recent capture of Goma by M23 rebels in 2025 highlighted the fragility of peace in the Great Lakes region. Despite international efforts, underlying tensions and grievances remain unaddressed. The UN and African Union have invested heavily in peacekeeping and humanitarian aid. However, efforts are hampered by lack of coordination and resources. The Congolese government struggles with corruption and weak institutions. Armed groups like M23, fueled by ethnic tensions and illicit trade, threaten stability. The cycle of violence and displacement devastates the civilian population. Rwanda's journey from the ashes of genocide to a beacon of economic growth is a testament to human resilience. The country has made remarkable progress in rebuilding its infrastructure and fostering reconciliation. Under President Kagame, ambitious policies have promoted growth, reduced poverty, and improved lives. Rwanda's commitment to education, healthcare, and gender equality has earned international praise. The world watches, hoping Rwanda's story will be one of continued progress and a brighter future. Thanks you for joining us to learn about the history of Rwanda. Please don't forget to subscribe and share this video about Rwanda's fascinating history. Bye for now.